Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
Thank you for joining us for Black Entrepreneur Experience. This is where we shine the light on the most successful Black entrepreneurs in the world. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards, and I'm so honored to have with us Ruby Scoop's owner and chef, Rabia Kamara. Did I say that right? Kamara. Sorry about that. Kamara from Washington, D.C., local and online retailer of small batch ice cream, sorbet, sherbet, and desserts, handcrafted deliciously and made with love. Welcome, Rabia. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am perfect. And you know what? I have given our audience a very brief bio about you. So why don't you fill in the blanks and share with us what you would like our audience to know about you and your company?
Absolutely. So I am a Maryland native. So I was born and raised in Maryland. I've always had an interest in cooking and food. I come from a family of a lot of great cooks. I'm a first generation African American. So my father is from Sierra Leone. My mother is Egyptian and Mauritian. So they've always kind of shared all of their culture with me. So I grew up with a lot of like African and American influences. And after graduating from Virginia Commonwealth University, I decided to pursue my passion of cooking and cooking for others and attended culinary school. So I went to a local culinary school called l'Académie de Cuisine, where I graduated with a culinary arts degree, and I've been cooking professionally for 5 years now. And I started Ruby Scoops June of 2015.
So tell us your first degree. Did it have anything to do with your business? And if not, how did you transition into the culinary? And I heard you say that cooking is, you've loved to cook, you're a foodie and all of that. So tell us about that transition.
Sure. My degree is actually a bachelor's in science in business marketing. So it was not at all really associated with the cooking, but it has come together in the sense of now that I run a business, I do, of course, have to have a marketing aspect of it to get the name out there and, of course, to get the brand awareness out and make us some money. So everything did come together. And it does allow me now to kind of utilize all of my educational experience, considering what I'm doing now with the running of the business and having to do the finance portion of things and the marketing portion of things and selling products, not just like the ice cream, but the service of it all. All of that was something that I learned in college that I've been able to use.
So how did you decide this was the business for you?
It was a couple of things, actually. Mostly, I got tired of working for other people. I was not getting along with the other members of management at my very last restaurant, and things were just not really working out for me. A lot of my food was getting recognition from local publications like the Washington Post Express, Zagat, and it wasn't coming back to me. And that was a problem. And I realized I was ready not only to kind of take my own steps, but to try to provide a different version of desserts than what was available in DC at that time. We were really, I think, shifting the focus really on a lot of the savory foods, and people weren't having as much dessert options or really having as much variety in desserts. And I wanted to change that. I knew I wanted to start doing something sweet because I've been baking since I was 9 years old. And that's one of my favorite things to do really is make desserts. And I thought long and hard about what desserts kind of have lasted throughout history, particularly the history of America. And ice cream has been around for over 100 years, and it's never really lost its popularity. Whereas cupcakes and donuts and other desserts tend to ebb and flow. But I think from a young age, ice cream is something that kind of becomes a reward, whether it be for good behavior or a milestone or momentous occasion. I think that comes from a young age, and ice cream is always something that people take pleasure in. A big part of why I like to cook is because I love to share that joy and kind of watch that joy within people and know that that was something that I was able to give them. And I think even when you're like, whether you're 2 years old or 72 years old, when you get a cup or a cone of ice cream, it's really exciting. And I just wanted to be able to share that with people for as long as possible.
So how did you come up with the name of your business, Ruby Scoops?
Ruby is one of my nicknames that I've had since I was a child, since Rabia is not really a name that's very easy for people. When I was younger, I wasn't as adamant about people getting to know my name, since it wasn't really like a typical name here. So I always let people call me Ruby. And it was a nickname that stuck for a long time. Originally, I wanted to call the business Susie Scoops because another kind of catalyst to the business for me was right before I started my job at my last restaurant, or actually while I was starting my last job, my grandmother passed away, and she was one of my biggest influences. And her name was Suzanne. So I wanted to call it Susie Scoops, but I actually changed it to Ruby, I think because my family thought that it sounded catchier, and it was more connected to me, like Rabia as a person, and that I could just kind of carry the spirit of my grandmother within my business as is. So I thought it would be catchy and fun, and I think so far people seem to warm up to it when they hear it. They tend to think it's cute or like it automatically, and or can tell automatically that we probably have ice cream because of the word scoops. So I thought it would work well.
Yeah, that's a wonderful name.
Thank you so much.
So talk about, are you running the business full time currently?
I am. I've been running the business full time since June of 2015. In the winter, things are a bit difficult because, it gets cold here and ice cream can be a bit seasonal in the sense of us doing direct sales with our customers, being able to engage with them one-on-one. But we are in 8 local grocery stores. So we are hoping to get into some more stores this year and have kind of more of a recurring revenue as it's colder. But it has been difficult running what is more or less a seasonal business in a place with harsh winters and having to figure that out. So sometimes in the winter, I have to do some part-time things kind of just to stay afloat and make sure that I can pay the people that are helping me run the business. Not necessarily myself, of course, but I can't leave them hanging when it's cold out completely.
So in terms of your business, if you had to do a relaunch, would you launch in the same city and state?
That's a tough one. A big advantage of me being in the same city and state is that this is where I'm from. And because of that, I have a great support system in my family, because starting a business is hard, particularly I think when you're young. And most of my experience has not necessarily been in running a business. It's more so been in cooking food. So it's been a major crash course in like how to fulfill all these roles and still be Rabia. And it helps to be around my family, and my family is also a lot of business owners. So I think it was helpful to do that here because of that. But also it's cold. So I think it'd be better to do it somewhere hotter, but I'm not sure if that really outweighs the benefit of being able to have the support network that I do here.
So Rabia, take us on that journey that you talked about, transitioning from, you went from cooking, working a 9 to 5, or working in a job, and transitioning as a business owner. Take us through that journey. Was that very difficult for you? Was it a no-brainer? Was it easy? Did you do a strategic plan that you said, okay, I'm going to exit my job? You said you started June 2015. Did you say, okay, April, May, I'm done? Take us on that journey.
I actually kind of fell into doing Ruby Scoops sooner than I would have liked to. I was hoping to start doing it part-time in April of 2015 and kind of start testing the waters and move into doing it full-time early 2016. And I had spoken to my employer about trying to, more or less, I was a little too honest with them about my personal endeavors and kind of got pushed out of my position. So I spent time kind of working with friends at other restaurants, making money to stay afloat, and trying to really figure out what's the best way to go about making Ruby Scoops work. I'd put some money aside for other purposes, but decided to use that to trademark Ruby Scoops, apply for the business licenses that I needed to. I had a plan that I was working on, but I kind of had to fast forward everything. The hours when you cook are always insane. So I was used to the hours, but the way that my hours how I need to dedicate the time that I spend with it is different. When I was working as a pastry chef at a restaurant group within a specific restaurant, I knew what my menus were. I knew what the recipes were. I knew how much I had to make every day because the restaurant tends to have more or less the same traffic on days, of course. They're usually very busy on the weekends or typically very busy for brunch. But now it's like if I'm working a 12 or 14-hour day, it's gotten to the point where I myself can't personally spend all that time cooking because I end up neglecting potential emails, potential accounts. I don't get to spend time really like looking at the finances, looking at what we need, to be kind of like set up for the week, which is not something I necessarily had to worry about as much as an employee because it was like, I just got to focus specifically on pastry and the pastry team. But now everything is under my umbrella. And that has been hard to get used to because it can get overwhelming. I think when you think about just how much more you have to do when you are the employer versus the employee, there's not really, although I've never really liked to think of myself as someone that skates through work. I think my parents really instilled a work ethic in me that drove me to even want to do Ruby Scoops because I feel sometimes like I'm a crazy person for doing this. But, it's like when you're working for someone else and things go wrong, I think it's a little easier to stomach than when you're doing it for yourself. Because even with as much planning as possible, I can be completely ready to work an event or to spin some ice cream or sorbet, but I could trip wrong and spill 6 gallons on the floor and have to start all over again the next day. Or I could be prepared to sell 20 gallons of ice cream and then it's raining the whole day. Those are all things I can't control. When that wasn't necessarily on my dime or 100% able to come back to my brand, it didn't really bother me as much as it does now. I think I've gotten a lot more used to it, understanding that I can plan for the picnic as much as possible and never predict the weather, both like literally and figuratively, but that was difficult, especially starting.
So what is one valuable lesson you wish you knew before starting your business?
Just how many roles you have to fulfill as a business owner, especially when you're starting and especially when you're making food, because there's so much quality control that comes in. Not only is this your brand in the sense of, for me at least, like our logo, although I didn't want it to be, the logo is basically a cartoon version of me. So it's always connected to me in one way, shape, or another. And I guess I didn't realize how heavy that was going to be. And learning how to deal with all that role conflict and also kind of staying on top of things because it made it, I don't think I expected for us to grow as quickly as we did. I had set goals, and not that I'm at all complaining. I'm very happy that that's happening. I do consider it to be a blessing, but I'd set goals, and when we surpassed them, I wasn't as prepared to keep up with them because I just didn't realize like how much that was going to take from me and at what point I was going to have to kind of let go of the reins some in order for this to be a really well-oiled machine. Most of the people that I know and have seen in business have business partners, whereas I do not. So I wish someone would have told me, hey, when you don't have a business partner, you have to be your own partner, and that ain't so easy.
So what's working well for you now in business?
We're getting to a point now where people are starting to recognize the brand, which has been amazing because it's really like helping kind of like put some gas under the name and bring the brand up. And we've been on a bit of a press run this year. So that's been really great. I was part of a Metro ad at the Shaw Howard University stop, where it was me and 17 other Black women business owners, basically a spotlight on how Black women are basically, the largest group of entrepreneurs today in America. And that was amazing and allowed me to connect with other like-minded women that are also trying to advance not only themselves and their brands, but our community as a whole. Being able to work with them has been absolutely amazing. I was named one of the Black chefs in DC influencing the culinary scene, which was very humbling and has been helpful. I was a chef tested on Food Network. So there's been a lot of kind of like gas to the Ruby Scoops name, which has been helpful in getting people interested. They want to see us in more stores. They want to see us have our own store through kind of gaining the popularity that we have through press and social media. I try to do well with upholding a decent Instagram account and image because of who our target audience is. It is a majority of women, minority women that are in their late teens to, I would say, mid 30s to early 40s. And a lot of those women are on social media a lot. So that's really helpful for us to connect with our brand and be able to be so visible and be able to connect with them one-on-one. That makes them want to come back. Because not only do they enjoy our product and our story, but they enjoy connecting with the team and myself. And that's been really nice because I know the larger we get, the less we'll really be able to do that. So I think being able to lay down that foundation now and people not just necessarily connect Ruby Scoops with the product, but the service as well and like the overall experience, that's very important to me. And it's been really awesome to have DC and Maryland start to embrace me the way that I would hope it would, considering this is, the area that I'm from and love.
That's wonderful. And you had mentioned, Rabia, that your growth had just excelled. Is there one thing that you can attribute to that?
I'm not sure if I could say that there's one thing. Again, I think the community has been really helpful, particularly the Black community in DC has been so, they've just embraced us so much, and that's been really nice. I think being at certain events and we did a lot more markets from year 1 to year 2. I don't know if that necessarily helped, but I think being able to connect with our consumers face to face and really differentiate ourselves as individuals and through our product from the other small ice cream makers in DC, because not that their products aren't good, but I'm not sure if they connect as well with the audience as I think that we have been in our short time as a company. I think that that's been helpful.
Okay. So who would you say are your top 2 influencers in your life, and what lessons do they teach you?
Easily, I would say my parents. They are amazing people. They are both business owners. They are great parents and great friends, siblings. I've watched their work ethic my entire life. They own a business together. And my mother has 2 businesses back home in Mauritius Island, one of which is a nonprofit. So they've definitely instilled work ethic in me. They've instilled the importance of treating your customers as king, listening to the things that they have to say, not even just customers, but the people around you, not thinking you can do it all on your own, being open to ask for help, being open to asking for advice, picking asking for people to lend as many ears as possible so that you're not making decisions alone that kind of come back to you that you could have done otherwise. I think they've really instilled kind of a sense of how important communication is in leadership and success. And also, again, with work ethic, being open to doing the work. I think as a leader and not necessarily a boss, you have to be willing to step in and be a part of the team and show everyone hey, I'm willing to do just as much work as you do, if not even more, because of how important not only this brand is to me, but how important all of you are to me, instead of kind of being an overlord, someone that's just watching what they're doing or being derogatory to, treating everyone, as much of equals as possible, even though, I want them to feel like we're a team and not that you work for me and what I say goes and you can't have an opinion or come in here and feel like you're contributing to Ruby Scoops. Because I've watched them interact with the employees of our family business, with even my employees, and just seeing how that works.
So how much of an influence do you feel that your parents played on you becoming an entrepreneur? Because you had indicated that you didn't start out as an entrepreneur. When did you know that you were going to become an entrepreneur? And do you feel that that has given you a slight edge?
I think when I got my first full-time job in restaurants, I realized I wasn't going to be happy working for other people forever. I think some part of me always knew that because I've always seen, to an extent, the freedom that my parents had working for themselves, even though when they were working really hard and working like 12-hour days. It also allowed them to carve out time to spend with us and to spend with each other and go on vacation and expose us to different things. But they also, when I was younger, they focused a lot on how important education was. And if you focused on school and did well and learned as much as you could, that would be advantageous as we grew older. I don't think it clicked in my head that would work in the sense of me being able to be my own business owner. I was in a place after I left my last restaurant job where I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue working full-time for others or if I wanted to focus full-time on trying to do something as myself. And I think that was probably, I guess, when I was in my mid-20s. And when I started talking to them about it and saying, like, hey, I'm really serious about trying to make Ruby Scoops a full-time thing, they were 100% behind it. And we started sitting down and kind of putting together projections and goals for year one in the sense of like a quarterly breakdown, semi-annual for the whole year. They were really helpful with me kind of just getting everything together. And I think ultimately it may give me a slight edge because I can sit down with them and we can go through my books. And at the end of the year, when I get my tax returns, we go through my tax returns and we kind of strategize together. And I think that has brought us closer as a family. And because as I'm getting older, of course, my relationship with my parents is changing because I'm becoming more of an adult. And even though I'm the baby in the family and their baby, they're looking at me as a woman as well, of course. So I think seeing me not only as a woman in other aspects of life, but seeing me be a business owner, and we've been in business for 2 years now, and I don't 100% know what I'm doing. And of course they're here to help me, but I've also I've not run on a loss yet. So I think that, and I'm hoping that when I say yes, I'm knocking on wood and that will never happen. But I think being able to see that growth in me makes them proud to see kind of like the fruits of their labor, but also know that like, oh, hey, we can do this together. I don't 100% know that other entrepreneurs get to really lean on their parents, not just for the emotional support, but kind of like for the professional support as I have.
Absolutely. So talk to a younger you. What advice would you give to a younger you?
I would tell younger me to not be so afraid to be serious about cooking. It was always made very clear to me that in this family, you go to college. And although I regret absolutely nothing about attending college, I enjoyed every year that I spent at VCU and I enjoyed everything that I learned. I had a great education. But I think I wish that I would have embraced the idea more of entrepreneurship in the food lane when I was in college. And I think that would have made me feel more prepared. Like being okay to accept the fact that like, hey, you really do want to cook and you really do want to run your own business. Why don't we start figuring that out now? I didn't really start getting serious about it probably until senior year of college, or getting serious about it again, that is. And I think that if I would have been able to spend not necessarily the last like 3 years, but the last 6 to 8 years planning, I would feel a lot more comfortable. Again, this is what I think, because you can plan all the pretty picnics and not predict the weather. But I think younger me would make current me feel a lot better if we already had an idea of what we wanted to do then.
So what is a technology tool or a technology platform that is a must-have for you in managing your business?
2 big things that I've enjoyed is we did build our own website. So our site is via the Wix.com platform, which I enjoy because we can send newsletters directly from it. We also get contact from interested individuals directly to the site. It was easy enough to put together because I have zero experience in doing that. And of course, for us, another big one is Instagram, because Instagram allows us to kind of be transparent in our day-to-day. It allows me to share what I'm doing that's relevant to the business. So people can kind of see like the personal side of things. So it doesn't necessarily feel as sterile, like there are older companies, Ben & Jerry's, Haagen-Dazs, that are so far removed from their founders and their original stories that the only thing that we see about them are pictures of ice cream scoops. Whereas we're still new to the scene, and we are very focused on local sourcing and local involvement and doing things with our community and collaborating. And we live in a place where that's admired and desired by our audience, and we get to show them that directly whenever they open up their apps. And that's very helpful because as social media reigns these days.
Absolutely. So let's talk about risk and failure. What is the worst moment in business, and what was your takeaway?
I think a lot of the time it feels like there are a lot of not worst moments, but terrible moments. And then you look back in the grand scheme of things of the year and you're like, oh, that wasn't so terrible. But I would say when we went from year one of markets to year two of business and also farmers markets, because that's our most profitable way of selling to the community. We went from doing 3 farmers markets to 6 farmers markets a summer, because my logic at the time was, oh, if we do twice as many markets, we'll make twice as much money, which was absolutely not what happened. It was ridiculously hot last summer and nobody wanted to leave the house ever. So I would say after like the first 6 to 8 weeks of markets, which was also the first time I had to hire people, all of that kind of hit at once, and having all those expenses to try to meet this demand that we ended up not really getting, and experience what it was like to really run in the red for the first time, was really like heart-wrenching for me. I was genuinely afraid that we weren't going to make it. I was working in a communal kitchen that overall had about 85 businesses. And last year, within like the first 6 months, I would say 8 of those businesses basically shut down shop. And I was just so frightened that like we were going to be the 9th or 10th one. And you get in your head because you see everybody around you being like, well, this isn't working, I should shut it down. And you're like, should I shut this down? Is this like not a thing? Should I not do this? There's that concept of, am I a failure because the way that I expected this to go, like things aren't going as planned. And it became less, I realized either I can like mope about it and freak out and think that things are going to be a failure and I have to go work a full-time job I don't want to work, or I can be adaptive to the situation instead of reactive. So I had to really take a step back and not freak myself out so much that I prevented myself, prematurely took myself away from an impending success. But it was frightening to look at numbers and be like, oh my gosh, everything has a minus in front of it. What is happening? What am I doing wrong? And it's like, when you're selling ice cream is not necessarily always going to be a piece of cake. And I had to come to terms with that and learn kind of how to work around it instead of freaking myself out.
So Rabia, how did you adjust? How did you reset?
Again, a big part of it was talking to my parents, sitting down again and kind of looking at the numbers and readjusting costs versus, what was coming in versus what was coming out. I had to let a couple people go. I had to let the people know that were still with me, what was going on. I had to make the decision to take last winter off, more or less. We weren't doing any markets. We were just doing wholesale retail. Not necessarily because of how things were going with the business. There was definitely, things were expensive, but also I wasn't really in the mindset to push forward the way that I needed to for professional and personal reasons. So I took some time to reset, to kind of take myself out of my usual daily routine when it's the summer, because from April to October, it's nonstop for us. So I decided, or April to November. So I figured I would take December and January to really get it together personally, but also professionally. We did a total overhaul of our packaging. I got the logo reworked. I made a contact list for grocery stores and started emailing grocery stores so that when it got hot, they didn't know who we were. We'd be kind of ramped up to be in their minds. I reached out to some local companies, both breweries and distilleries, and I'm going to be doing a special edition line of ice creams and sorbets that are made with the beers and the liquors that are basically created in the DC and Maryland area. I basically try to challenge my frustration into creations and ways to make Ruby Scoops better in the long run.
So to date, what would you say is your biggest achievement so far in your business?
For me, I would say the biggest thing was when we went to do year 2 taxes and I saw that business grew over 125%. That was an amazing feeling because, again, I was so bogged down in how much was going out versus coming in and a lot of different things that were going on with my own mind space that I was just, again, and everyone kind of shutting down around me. I didn't think things were going so well. I feel like in business, it's like when you try to look at things big picture, it either brings you down somewhat mentally or you take a step back and you're like, oh, look at how much I've actually accomplished in this amount of time. So when I feel myself getting kind of freaked out or wondering, what the heck am I doing? Do I really want to do this? I say to myself, hey, you really started doing this June 2015. You got in your first grocery store in November of 2015. And now it's May of 2017. We're in 8 local grocery stores. We wholesale cookies to 3 locations. We're getting ready to start wholesaling gallons to 2 restaurants. I was on Food Network. Like all those things, looking back, that's a lot to accomplish in 2 years' time, even though I would love to be like, oh, I want an ice cream shop. Oh, I want this, that, and the third. But we were able to create enough, basically, like affection for the Ruby Scoops brand and for Rabia and Ruby that I was able to raise $10,000 via Kiva microloans to buy an ice cream machine. That is another major accomplishment for me, knowing that 189 people, some of who I do and others I don't know, admire what I'm doing or the Ruby Scoops story enough to give me money out of their pockets to buy an ice cream machine. That's an amazing and humbling feeling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So talk to the person in our audience and they want to start a business, they're fearful. What advice would you offer them?
Don't be afraid to fail. I think that's the first thing is we get in our heads with the what ifs. So don't be afraid to take a step out there and see what works for you. But in that same sense, don't step out there unprepared. The same way you wouldn't leave the house without checking the weather, or you wouldn't go on vacation without packing for anything that could go awry. You should be looking at your business the same way. Like, take the time to figure out what you're passionate about, what you will wake up every day excited to do, or who you'll be wake up every day excited to see. Ask the people around you that are in business what it took for them, what they do every day, what inspired them and how they got there. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions and take risks and figure out what makes you feel right so that you can take it to the next level and make your passion, I like to call it passionate, profitable, passionate, like do what's going to make you happy for the rest of your life.
So talk to our audience, Rabia. What book would you recommend and why?
That one for me is difficult because I think it depends on what it is you want to do career-wise or business-wise. For me, when I decided to start cooking and then I wanted to start doing ice cream, I read a lot of books about technique and flavors and how those go together so I could figure out kind of ways to differentiate myself. And I read a book about food service, but more so like the power of hospitality, and not just in restaurants, but overall. So that was the last book that I read before I decided to go gung-ho into Ruby Scoops. It was called Setting the Table by Danny Meyer, and he is the owner of a ridiculous amount of restaurants, like 12 restaurants, including Shake Shack. So and they talked about him a lot in culinary school. So I wanted to kind of see what it was that he did. Now, of course, our stories are different. I'm a young Black woman and he's an older white male. And so, of course, there's differences and advantages. But I think no matter what you do, hospitality is important, and understanding that even if you're selling a product, you're still providing a service, and learning the best way to do that as yourself. Of course, as professionally as possible, but being able to express yourself in a professional sense and understanding how hospitality can transform your business and the way that you interact with others.
So what is the thing that would make you stop, if anything?
That's a tough one. I don't know if there is anything right now that I can think of. There's nothing coming to mind. At this point, I feel like I'm at a point and age in my life where I'm going to try to ride this thing as much as possible until the wheels completely fall off of it, which I'm hoping don't happen because things are going really well. I think if for some reason I needed to dedicate a lot, if not all of my time to my family's business, then that would maybe make me pump the brakes because that business literally put me through all of the schools that I ever needed to attend in and it's done a lot for my family. So I would be happy to give back to it. I worked there when I was younger, but if I needed to be back there as an adult, that would probably be the only thing.
Okay, thank you for that. So, Rabia, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question that you wish I would have asked you? And I'd like you to answer that question.
Ooh, perhaps who are the entrepreneurs or the Black entrepreneurs that have inspired me to keep going? And I would say there are a lot of them, and mostly because I know a lot of people go through different types of careers before they find what's right for them, or they spend a lot of time in their careers before things really pick up for them. So there are a lot of different people. Of course, like everyone thinks Oprah and Jay-Z, because those are people whose lives didn't really pick up until they were in their 40s. And on top of that, also Carla Hall. She was the first person that I worked for out of culinary school, and she's just a blast to be around. But things didn't really pick up for her until she was older and until she felt comfortable breaking out of kind of her nest. But she embraced who she was, and the rest of America kind of followed suit, and she gets to do what she loves every day.
I like that. So share with our audience a parting piece of advice you want to offer.
Explore the world. Like, again, figure out what the things are that you love to do. What is something that you could wake up every day and not get sick of doing, and figure out how to make that profitable.
You know, I tell you, doing this interview, and I'm just kind of marinating and just digesting the information that you have shared. And I have to tell you, you have definitely been an inspiration. And one of the things that you've inspired me, it was so creative just listening to your story. And I'm just so impressed with your journey, with your parents, and how they instilled in you to be this great female Black entrepreneur. But you, just from our interview tonight, it has actually taken me on a journey to say that I'm going to start doing. I'm not a big Instagram person doing this solo with my business. I'm focusing on one platform, and it has mainly been Facebook. But one of the things that you've inspired me just tonight listening to your story is that I'm going to do quotes from the Black entrepreneurs that I've interviewed. And one of the things that you just said tonight was, don't be afraid to do what makes you feel good. So I just want to tell you that resonated with my spirit. And thank you so much for sharing that with us and with our audience.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys for having me and for sharing those kind words with me. Those are things that also help me keep pushing. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And Rabia, we've come to the part of our podcast where we call it Fun Facts Lightning Round. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And what I'd like you to do is to give very quick answers. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The last movie you saw?
Beauty and the Beast.
You relax doing what?
Spending time with my friends and family, going out for food and drinks, and zoning out watching TV or listening to music.
And your favorite singer or rapper?
Oh, that's difficult. I like a lot of music, so that's a toughie. I did just see Future and Migos and Solange in concert. That was all amazing. Separate concerts, but still amazing.
And your favorite dance song?
I will probably run to the dance floor anytime a Juvenile or a Hot Boys song comes on, or if Wipe Me Down by Lil Boosie is on, I will literally run from wherever for any of those songs.
And the food you eat every week, no matter what?
I probably eat, I would say, French fries, or I eat raw cookie dough more than I should, but not a lot, but like one cookie's worth of raw cookie dough.
And your favorite month?
October. It's my birthday month, and my mom's as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rabia. I am so honored that you would take time to spend time with us on Black Entrepreneur Experience. So in closing, what is the best way for our audience to connect with you?
We are all over the internet, so you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Ruby Scoops IC, as in ice cream. We're also on Facebook, Ruby Scoops Ice Cream and Sweets. Our website is rubyscoops.com, and you can shoot me an email at info@rubyscoops.com as well.
Well, we appreciate you, your time, and thank you for sharing your inspiring journey on Black Entrepreneur Experience. Thank you. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.